Good morning, everybody. Mestre Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan, Mestre Vibes, and I am feeling fantastic. Today, I'm going to be talking about a very special subject, and it's going to be a fun journey, so bear with me. Today, we're going to be talking about what are the bad qualities and the good qualities of a capoeira mestre or mestra. And I'm going to be reflecting mostly on myself because I'm always a work in progress. And as a result of that, I want to be able to share with you guys how I see things happening in the capoeira world. And I always talk about how capoeira philosophy and spirituality is part of my being. So I want to also share with you guys how I'm developing not only as a person, but as a capoeira mestre. So a capoeira mestre, or a master, is a highly respected and skilled individual in the art of capoeira. Does that make sense? A capoeira mestre or master is a highly respected and skilled individual in the art of capoeira. The qualities that make a good capoeira mestre can vary, but there are some generally considered positive and negative qualities. What I'm going to do today in this podcast is talk about the bad qualities first and how I see them, how they affect me. And I'll try to give you guys a couple of stories and hopefully we can move forward from there. And then after that, I'll talk about all the good qualities. Number one, the biggest complaint of bad qualities of a master or a mestra, I'm just going to say master because it's easier for me to just continue this way, is arrogance. Arrogance is excessive pride, or arrogance can be detrimental to the learning environment, right? It can, if a master has too much arrogance, if they think they know everything, or if they don't know and don't say they don't know, then they start to invent things. For example, I've seen a lot of people who don't know and then start to invent, and then that lie gets taken forward, or that falsehood gets taken forward. And it's like saying, I've heard people say that years ago, I've heard rumors, because people love to talk just to be heard, and that's a lot of arrogance involved in that. Me, in a way, it's always been a catch-22. My arrogance leads me to always constantly moving forward, but at the same time, my arrogance has led to some isolation of me in Japan of capoeira, because I believe I was right, or I believed I was right. And from now on, I'm hoping to start doing more outside rodas, and hopefully people from other groups will come. But at the end of the day, I want people to understand that because of my arrogance, I'm going to try to do the best I can. But it does sometimes keep me from being more flexible. At times when I'm doing music recording, I'm, people say, well, what about this person doing it? What about this person doing it? And I get very worried because I feel, okay, that person's not there yet. Assuming my arrogance tells me like I know better. But there's I think a lot of different things happening. It's how you use the negative things in life. But I've seen a lot of situations of capoeira mestres where arrogance, like they're the only one who knows everything. I was at an event many, many years ago, and the master who was visiting the event literally said to me, "What is Capoeira Zoador group?" And I said, "Oh, it's a group I made." He goes, "The only official group of capoeira in the world was the group that he made." I was like, whoa, that's a lot of arrogance. And I mean, it turned off a lot of people. That person obviously never came back to the events that were done because people were just like, wow, this guy's way out there. But that arrogance of only your way is possible needs to be very careful, because there's a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, too much arrogance will get you, let's say, get you excluded from a lot of things. And it has happened to me. So I'm working on that all the time, on how to be more open and flexible. Number two is a lack of patience. Teaching capoeira requires patience, especially when working with students at different skill levels. Impatience can hinder the learning process and create a negative atmosphere. I've done it. I've done it. I was like, well, let's do some music. And then no one's practiced because they only practice when they come to class for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So it'll gets me stressed. Like, okay, nobody practiced, so we can't practice music. People have different lives and different things to do. So I always try to keep my lack of patience in check, because sometimes it's just like, well, how come you can't do simple capoeira pandero? I've taught you, a dozen times. Oh, you don't train. Yeah, there's a responsibility to the students, but at the same time, there's a responsibility for me as a master to have patience so that the student can, develop. But it's like I said, it's all a catch-22. So I need to be able to understand that people develop at different levels, in different aspects of capoeira, and just because I put 100% of my time into this doesn't mean everybody else can. So, lack of patience. Closed-mindedness, number 3. Being resistant to change or new ideas can impede the growth and evolution of capoeira. A master should be open to different perspectives and willing to adapt while still preserving the essence of the art. A lot goes back kind of to arrogance. A lot of capoeira masters, sorry guys, we're doing the construction up there, so I know you guys can hear it. A lot of masters are very close-minded, unfortunately. Not all, but they think only their way or their group or their information is all they know. And unfortunately with capoeira, we do have a lot of people who come from less educated backgrounds, and it's not a negative thing. It adds to the richness and to the grassroots of the art. But a lot of times people don't want to move forward. Like I ask sometimes people, I go, how many capoeira books have you read? Or I'll mention to somebody, oh, have you read Mestre Nestor's book? Have you read this book? Have you read that book? And you'd be surprised how little people actually want to know other information. And the reason is, when I first came here, a lot of the Brazilian musicians were like that. They don't want anything, listen, it's only their way. There's no other way to do it but their way. And this is, I think, really comes to what we call, when you don't have the skill to move forward or to grow, then you hold on to what you know as the truth. So you don't want to say like, oh, that's off, or this is different, or you don't want to change because you think that's the only way, and that's actually you holding on to the truth. You're holding on to the power of authenticity or cultural awareness. So being closed-minded sometimes doesn't allow for people to even, add new techniques to their teaching. Or, for example, if I see a new negativa, I'm like, wow, let's start using that. I'll incorporate. Capoeira is constantly evolving. So being closed-minded is pretty dangerous because there's constantly something new you can do, especially as an artist. When I do music, I love adding new things. It's how I express myself as an artist and a capoeira master. So being closed-minded is something very difficult to hold on to. Number 4, this is a big one, abuse of power. Some masters may misuse their authority, leading to an unhealthy power dynamic within the capoeira community. This can include favoritism, exploitation, and other forms of abuse. And this is something we see a lot in capoeira. Not just capoeira, but it's very cultural. For example, as long as I've seen this happen a lot, one of the biggest complaints of non-Brazilian capoeira students about dealing with Brazilian teachers is they're part of the in-group. They're getting a lot of love from the teacher until they can no longer be exploited. For example, a lot of times, one of the biggest complaints I hear is, oh, my master, my teacher was, I used to do all this for them. But when I stopped, they started to get angry at me or exclude me or treat me differently. And this brings the favoritism and exploitation together, right? When they can't exploit you, they no longer favor you. For example, I had a visitor a few years ago before Corona, and he was with his group for 15 years, and he's like, you know what? It's funny, when I got married and I started to do other things and I couldn't be there 3-4 times a week, my master started to get angry. Started to tell me like, oh, you're not dedicated to capoeira. But the actual thing was, the person was, but they're evolving as a human being and growing and getting a family, and priorities change, but they were still in capoeira. But up until that point, they were the person who was also helping the teacher find places to teach, helping the teacher with marketing and with promotion and making capoeira, their teacher, get more students. So when you can no longer be used, you can no longer be exploited, then you no longer have that person's favor. So that's a big thing that happens a lot in capoeira. Here's a big one. And this isn't because people don't speak the language, but it has a lot to do with personality and just common sense. The ineffective communication. Old school masters expect you to read their minds and know exactly what they're thinking. It's kind of funny. The Mestre Mata Mosquito. I say Mestre Mata Mosquito because that's the last thing I'd heard that he had gotten as master. So I haven't actually directly asked what's going on, but he had said that Mestre Acordeon always says, don't do what I ask, do what I want. And I think that's a perfect example. I know that was made in a jest, but it's a perfect example of what happens a lot of times when people are too artistic or thinking too fast, especially when they're very talented capoeiristas, that they lack the ability to communicate what they want, exactly what they want and how they want it. So a lot of times it causes a lot of friction or stress, and it makes the situation uncomfortable for everybody. And traditionally, it was, a master was, your master. It was almost like you don't ask, you just do. When I started capoeira, it was like that. You don't ask, you just do. How jump? How high? Nope, you're already in the air. And then if you don't know, it's your fault because you didn't ask or you didn't chase after the information, as we say in Portuguese, correr atrás. So this ineffective communication is really, really difficult. Clear communication is essential for teaching and leading a group of any kind. And a master who struggles to convey their ideas or instructions may hinder the learning and experience for the students. So it's really important to build good communications. And if you say, for example, oh, my language ability isn't there, then study. Invest in your education. I love, there's a capoeira teacher in Korea, Brazilian one, and Shiru, he's just a great guy. And his English is so good. And I was when Disco asked him, how did your English get so good? He goes, because I invested in a course, in an English course. He took English, effectively studying English. He reads and writes and does everything. He didn't just do it because he moved to an English-speaking country, but he put the time and energy. He invested in his education so he could communicate well. And his English is fantastic. Big shout out to him. So not having effective or ineffective communication is a big hindrance or a bad quality of a master that we need to be very aware of. Especially one of the biggest things is anytime we talk about money in capoeira, all of a sudden everyone is emotional. It's pay what you can. And then if it's not enough, there's a complaint. Miscommunication, especially about money in capoeira, is very important. I think I've told this story before. Mestre Acordeon came the last time. I love him. He is worth every penny. If you ever get a chance, somebody to bring him. And he came in literally off the plane. He dressed. I go, Master, are you rested? He goes, yes. And I go, okay, can I sit down with you for a second? Yeah, and I go, and I did the money thing. Before he even checked into his hotel, before he even went to go stay somewhere, he already was paid for the event, before the event, not only because I have a great respect for him, but trust. I said, Mestre, let's do the money thing. And I gave him the envelope, and I said, Mestre, this is for your fee for coming to Japan. Thank you so much. And here you go. I go count it, and he says, oh, Sukuri, I trust you. I go, no, Mestre, this is not about trust. This is a clear communication of our deal about you coming to Japan. We counted the money. I said, are we clear? Are we clear? Yes. Are we clear? Yes. Okay. Is this what we agreed on? Yes. Mestre, then Mestre Linguista came in. I go, Mestre, accordion. Mestre Linguista, can you please, did I pay you correctly? Yes, you paid me correctly. Is everything good? Yes. After that, it's not my problem, but this, especially about the money side in capoeira, really needs to be clear from the beginning. I don't want to work with people who are unclear because it causes problems for me, and it always ends up causing stress for my wife. Like, well, what should I do? How much should I pay? What's this and this? And so just having clear and effective communication is so important as a mestre. Okay, here's a big one. Mestres of, especially Brazilian mestres of capoeira, and I'm also guilty of this. We expect people to have a big cultural understanding or a deep cultural understanding of Brazilian culture, even though people might not have lived in Brazil, or their only access to Brazilian culture might be by the internet, YouTube, or whatnot. For example, in Korea, there's only one capoeira teacher from Brazil. So how much cultural understanding can anyone have since no one actually lived in another country or lived in Brazil to a level where they can have any kind of cultural understanding? And I think cultural understanding, if you live somewhere, like if you go to Brazil and you're there for a year, you're going to be able to speak basic Portuguese and you'll get a lot of cultural understanding. Is it enough as a teacher? I don't know, because I don't know how to judge that. But a lack of cultural understanding, a mestre especially a mestre, should have a deep understanding and respect for the cultural roots of capoeira. I can't tell you guys how many times, like when I wrote my second book, Capoeira Fire, I mentioned before, all of the Brazilian teachers, mestres who are like older generation, only complain about how little cultural understanding the younger mestres have, how little technical understanding, how little musical understanding. Everyone sings, everyone does acrobatics, everyone's only about the roda. That was the main complaint. And there was very little understanding of the cultural aspects of capoeira. It was just, okay, let's play roda. The problem is, when you start going abroad, non-Brazilians are also attracted to capoeira for the Brazilian cultural side. So being able to communicate that, you need to have a very deep understanding of the historical and cultural context that can, and how to interpret the art of capoeira to your students. Finally, the last bad quality is the inability to adapt. And this is something that I think most people have seen. When I was in San Diego before I came to Japan, about 3 or 4, because capoeira was still just starting in San Diego, there was about 3 or 4 formados who were really good, a contramestre, a professor, 2 formados, came through, and they were fantastic. They got a lot of students, and then done. They weren't able to adapt to being professional capoeira teachers in San Diego. And this story is something that I've heard so many times all around the world. When people go to teach capoeira from Brazil and they're unable to adapt, you need to be able to adapt. While tradition is important, a capoeira master should be willing to adapt to the changing needs, especially to the demographics of their capoeira community, right? If I were to move to Korea right now and start teaching capoeira, I would have to adapt to how things work in Korea, not just taxes, but social things. For example, here in Japan, you cannot have a street roda. That's a cultural thing. So I have to work around it. So I do more shows, I do more events. I have to find a place to do a roda. But this is super challenging. I've been looking for 2 years, and it's very challenging because In Japan, they don't do that, but that's something that I had to adapt to. I had to adapt to this, how things are done here. And wherever you go, that's going to happen. When Mestre Acordeon went to San Francisco, he talked about how he had to adapt, as most of his students at first were dancers, because he was teaching dancers, and it wasn't like that rough and tumble capoeira that he was used to from Bahia. So it's always kind of, you need to adapt. You need to adapt. The biggest complaint I hear from people about teachers coming from Brazil is lack of professionalism in time management, being late, not being organized, and not everybody, but I'm talking about the negative things right now, not the positive things. So that's one of the biggest complaints, is just people not being on time. I pride myself being on time because I grew up Mexican American, and people were like, oh, Mexican time. So I never liked this. I'm always trying to be professional, and I value other people's time. So when it's time to start class, the doors are open and they're ready to go. I teach 16 classes a week, but I'm here an hour before and after, basically, for every group of classes. So now we need to move to what are the good qualities of capoeira. And I'm really excited because after spending so much time on the bad qualities, we need to focus on the good qualities. I don't know. I wonder sometimes if I could call them bad qualities. Maybe let's call them points that challenge us as capoeira teachers. Points that challenge us, right? Like we're challenged to be better. We're challenged to have, better qualities about ourselves. They're not bad qualities, they're challenges. For example, if I have arrogance, I need to see it, challenge myself and go, okay, in what points is my arrogance good and it's dedication? And at what point is it bad that it's holding me back from letting people have space, right? Lack of patience. I gotta be able more patience with people, especially when you teach kids. Like I teach a lot of kids, so closed-minded, you need to be open, or you wouldn't be able to grow as an artist. And I think that's why very few capoeiristas have an artistic channel. They don't do things because they don't feel like they can. They're worried about what other people are gonna do. Abuse of power. You have to think to yourself, how am I building my relationships and not using them? Ineffective communication. How can I improve my communication so that we can move forward in a positive way? Cultural understanding. How can I get better at understanding what I do to be able to share that with the people who rely on me for this, amazing capoeira art and education? And more importantly, how can I adapt, right? I got to constantly be able to adapt. I need to know scheduling and how to get things done and just everything. So let's say those are not bad qualities, but challenges. Now, what are the good qualities of a mestre? Now, again, remember, we're talking about a mestre, somebody who's at least 20 years of capoeira and has dedicated themselves and is understood by the capoeira community to be a mestre. So let's get right into the good qualities, because now we can get into some really fun, positive stuff. A capoeira mastery, a good quality, is a high skill level. A mestre should have advanced skills in capoeira, demonstrating proficiency in both the physical movements and the musical aspects of the art. A capoeira mestre should be able to do all the aspects of the roda, play every instrument, play every rhythm that they need, but also be able to play every aspect of the game. When I mean, like, a master should be able to, at the worst situation, fake playing Angola. A lot of people call it Angola, but they're doing like a low Benguela or a slow regional, or low and slow regional. But if at the end of the day, a good mestre can go into any roda and enjoy and make other people feel the energy of their capoeira and their skill level, right? If I go into an all Angola roda, people are gonna be like, oh wow, Mestre Sucuri, and I haven't played Angola for a while, so people are gonna go, wow, that's great. Then I can play regional, and I can play the instruments, or I can do the samba de roda, or I can lead a puxada de rede, or I can do a makulele. And people have different things. For example, I don't do coco, but there's other stuff. So I don't know everything. But a high skill level, if you're only able to play capoeira and you don't have the other aspects of the roda, then you don't really have a high skill level, in my opinion. And this is something that we need to constantly improve on and practice. So a good mastery quality is to have a high skill level in all aspects of the art. People say, well, you can't be good at everything. Yeah, but then you're not really a master, are you? So to be a master, you have to have a good experience in a lot of things. And if you don't, then you're willing to learn. And that takes us back to the open-mindedness and the ability to adapt. So next, a good quality of a master is to have deep knowledge. A master should have a profound understanding of the history, the traditions, the cultural aspects of capoeira. This includes knowledge of various styles, songs, and rituals associated with the art. Like I just said, right? You're able to go anywhere in the world and play capoeira. I can go anywhere and play capoeira. That's what I train my students to do. I want them to have a deep knowledge of not only the physical aspects of capoeira, but everything that's involved around capoeira. The social, the cultural, the meaning of the songs. For me, I always say the songs of capoeira represent the philosophy, the poetry of capoeira. If you don't understand the songs to some level, then I'm going to say something here. You are not a capoeirista. Because that's part of, it's like you're saying you do all the aspects. You do karate, you do let's say, sado, the tea ceremony, you do calligraphy, you do everything. But if you don't understand what any of the symbols or any of the cultural aspects of it, or if you don't understand any of the things, then you're just copying. You're just appropriating things to do. Without the essence of the art and that deep knowledge that's very important for a mastery to have, and that comes from the songs, then I think it's difficult to be a capoeirista, in my opinion. You can be what Mestre Valdemar said in his CD, you can be an athlete proficient in the sport of capoeira, but you're not a capoeirista, right? But nobody wants to say, oh, that's not it. I would say most people I meet are athletes in the sport of capoeira. That means they pretty much just do the roda because they lack the understanding and things around. But that's not a bad thing. That goes back to when I talk about, client, an alumno, student, and discípulo, right? A disciple. So it's the different things that go with the different levels of capoeira. And that's one thing about adapting outside of the capoeira roda and how to do things. So you have to have this understanding, this deep knowledge of capoeira culture and style, right? Teaching ability. A good master will have a high teaching ability, being able to effectively teach and communicate the techniques and philosophy of capoeira is crucial. A good master should inspire and guide students to develop their skills and understanding. That is self-explanatory. If you do not know how to teach, you cannot be a good master. You could be a master by definition. There's a lot of masters who never taught. And like I said, we have Mestre de Casa, semi-professional masters, but a lot of people will just be in capoeira for many years but never teach, and that's fine. But to be a good master, to be recognized, you also have to be able to teach, and that's a very important thing. You can be a master from doing capoeira for a long time, but if you don't teach, if you don't have a good teaching ability, then you're not really a master, or what I call a professional master. So that goes into the different things between the types of masters. But we're talking today about a professional master as I'm reflecting on myself. So I'm constantly thinking about how to teach in a better way. Next, leadership. A master often plays a leadership role not only in his capoeira classes, but his capoeira community. And more I'm seeing in their own community, like their own neighborhood, their own city. Strong leadership skills are important for guiding the group, maintaining discipline, and fostering a positive and inclusive environment. One of the greatest classes I took was leadership. I took that at Waseda Graduate School from the MBA program. They tell you so many things that are just so easy, common sense, and I've always reflected on those things, and I constantly think about how leadership is such an important aspect. If you look at my first book, On the Path of Capoeira, I'm talking about how leadership, the 5 levels of leadership, I directly translate into the 5 levels of malicia. So maybe I'll talk about the 5 levels of malicia in the next podcast. I have to think about that for a while. But leadership and developing leadership, people need to understand that leadership is so important. There's the 5 levels of leadership. You can see that on the internet anytime, so I won't get into it too much right now. But being able to lead is such an important thing, and a lot of that is leading by example. And this is sometimes a lot of masters will say do this, but they don't do it themselves. And being a good master, people are going to listen to you, so you need to lead by example. Capoeira good masters also have a lot of respect for tradition. A master should respect the tradition and values of capoeira while also contributing to the evolution and growth of capoeira. There's a picture that Mestre Vibes always says it's his favorite. He says he printed it out and put it in his academia. It's the picture of me serving him wine when we were in England for an event. And he's laying on the sofa with a big smile, and I'm like, I have a towel wrapped over my shoulder, draped over my forearm like a waiter, and I'm bringing him wine. And he just said, this is a change in social roles. And I started laughing, so I go, Master, you've done so much for capoeira. This is the minimal thing I can do for you. This is the least I can do for you. Having reverence for the older masters and masters, for the people who already laid down the steps, having respect for the traditions that they've been a part of, that they've created, that they've instilled in us, is so important. Most of the masters complain about how, like Mestre Bimba, Mestre Pashinha, all died poor when they had students. We can't get into their relationships, but generally older masters died poor for lack of self-understanding of how to be financially responsible, but also community and cultural reasons and education reasons. So you can't throw water at a wall and expect it, to fall down. So we need to understand that sometimes they need respect. One thing, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but since the beginning of COVID and continuing to this day from yesterday, Contra Mestre Disco and I every month send Mestre Boa Gente support money. I want to say support money. Every month we send enough that pays for basically the rent of his academia. In a poor area of Bahia, we're able to cover the rent. It's not a lot by Tokyo standards, but it's something that I feel we do. Yesterday I sent it through the bank, and I send him every month money to help him with that one little aspect of his life. And I do it out of love, because one thing I see about Mestre Boa Gente is that all the bad qualities, he's already gone through them and he's developed past them. He's really a great mentor to have in my life, and he's someone I consider not only like a master, but like a father figure in capoeira. And he has a lot of the good qualities. So, I mean, I can't say how lucky I am. So every month, Patreon, and from now on, it's going to be from Patreon, because this is where I do everything outside of teaching capoeira. From Patreon members, just so you know, every month we send about, I want to say 15,000 yen. 15,000 yen is about 500 reais. I make sure it's 500 reais a month, and this pretty much covers the rent for Mestre Boa Gente's academia. So like I always said, I want to be very clear and very open with you guys, but this is something that we do every month. And from now on, it's going to be from the Patreon. So your guys' support directly supports Mestre Accordion's academia, which in turn is 99% focused on underprivileged kids from the poor area of Bahia. So that's charity every month that you guys are also a part of. You guys can take pride in feeling that aspect that you guys are helping to support such an important situation, an important project in the northeast of Bahia. So, mentorship. Providing mentorship to students. This is something that I'm super involved in with these days, especially here on Patreon. Like, any of you guys need anything here, just let me know. Even if you're not doing capoeira, I'm happy to talk. I've always got time for everybody here on Patreon. So providing mentorship to students and helping them grow, not only as a capoeirista, but also as individuals, is a positive quality of a good mestre. I always tell my students, anything stupid I've already done. So I'm hoping you guys can learn from my mistakes without having to suffer through the trials and tribulations of those things. So being a good mestre also means mentorship, leading by example, improving on your own life. That's something I hope I'm doing. So, because a lot of times mestres play a significant role in the personal development of their students. A lot of times students will ask you, and I've said this before, when you're a mestre, they assume you know everything, or they want you to give them advice about life or about relationships or about work or about whatever. So people want to bounce ideas off of you because they know you've put time in. Of course, I'm never going to say, oh, well, I know about like this high level work or this high level job or this and that. But I do have experience, and I've developed emotionally and mentally, especially like my emotional intelligence. I feel I work on a lot. So I'm here as a mentor, and I've dealt with capoeira for 35 years now. So hopefully I can give those experiences to help people reflect on and to better their lives. Like I mentioned the other day, somebody from Germany had asked me for some advice, and I said, hey, look, this is what I would do. This is the best I can. You have to choose for yourself. Finally, this is probably the most important, and it goes back to the lack of adaptability, is the ability of adaptability. The ability to adapt in different situations, styles, challenges is so important for a capoeira mestre, especially a good capoeira mestre. Capoeira is dynamic, and a mestre should be able to navigate various contexts. I mean, I'm constantly adapting. So just as a side note, up until today, well, actually yesterday was the final call to action. I was telling people I've been promoting Patreon so hard because this is like my other passion besides teaching at my academia. So I adapted because I was talking to a student last night. A new student had come in and they tried classes, and I said, hey, I'm doing Patreon. This is how I charge my adult students now. And he was like, wow, that's interesting. And I said, well, no, it's because I have to evolve. I have to evolve, and I have to get to the new way of doing things. If I do Patreon for the adults, since the main is Japanese, it's not only helps me being smart for taxes, but it gives me a different focus on how I'm doing things and stability. So most important for me with adults, having the stability is such an important thing. So being able to bring everything together here on Patreon, the podcast, the videos, the articles, the music, everything, the day-to-day, behind the scenes, everything I do here is really saves me time. So if you noticed from yesterday morning, after I stopped doing a lot of promotion for Patreon, I put out a lot of stuff. And from now on, when it's a Patreon-supported event, be it my time, be it something that I use that's from Patreon, for example, like the camera or the microphone that was sponsored by Patreon, or the software that every month you guys help me cover the costs of. All of that stuff is I'll always put a little logo of Patreon. And of course I'll say, hey guys, if you'd like to know more, join my Patreon. Maybe we can get a couple more people. But I'm pretty happy where we are. Hopefully, it'll grow a little bit more. Like I said, if people want to raise their monthly contribution or whatever, I'm not going to say no. But we got a lot of good things coming up for 2024, and I'm adapting. I'm really adapting and doing the best I can. And today I got a special picture, just an example, but you guys will be able to check it out later. Take a look, because I'm working on something for next year that's going to be super amazing. Guys, Mestre Sucuri, Capoeira Zoador, Tokyo, Mestre Vibes, all the good and the bad qualities of a Mestre. I hope that's, please comment and let me know if you have any questions because I'm here for you guys. You guys are everything to me. Have a fantastic day. Lots of love, lots of peace, and lots of Capoeira.